I hear a dog in the distance and another dog approaching the dog. I do hear some very soft and subtle water sounds. It is approaching the quay. It's quite silent. I hear an airplane in the distance. Some people excited about the weather, car noises. A bird. We are at the voorhaven, or the inner harbour of the marineterrein, which is named after the marine that was stationed here for decades. And 400 years ago, Amsterdam was the largest harbour in the world. And this is where long-term colonization and trade was departing from. And in 1650, the eastern islands, where we are now, were constructed or reclaimed from the water. And on this location, the shipyards were located for building war and battleships. So this area was inhabited by craftsmen who were building the ships and the masts. And on our left side, there is what used to be called the Landszeemagazijn, so the land-sea warehouse, which we know today as the National Maritime Museum. And this is where ships were supplied with weapons, navigation instruments, and other supplies. And this building actually used to have a quite extensive water management system. I learned because they were capturing like rainwater as supply for the ships, but also there was a reservoir on the roof which worked as a fire extinguishing system. But this area that we are finding ourselves in has been completely transformed over the centuries. It's interesting because it always has been working with the natural flows of the water and also against it. So for instance, in the 19th century, there was the silting of the harbour became a really big problem. So it could no longer be dredged. And so they had to work with the ebb and flow of the tides. And then they built both the Westerdok and the Oosterdok, where we are now, with enormous locks in the dike to provide access to the sea. The size of the ships, of course, kept increasing. And at some point, the North Sea Canal was dug to keep the harbour accessible for larger ships. And at some point, it didn't work anymore. So the ships could not enter this shipyard anymore, or the other way around. So then it became the base for the marine. So this place has historically been altered and transformed to keep the productivity of the harbour going and to optimize the landscape for the use of new technologies. But today we see that this place serves a whole different function, and it has become a publicly accessible area. I heard that since 2 weeks, this has become the first official swimming spot in Amsterdam. So they're controlling the quality of the water, and so it has a whole different function now. So as part of the Rhine River Herstal journey that we conducted as Loom, we tried to reimagine the river through different lenses. And I was interested in a similar but also slightly different landscape, which is also part of the Rhine River Delta, like this location that we are here. So I live in Rotterdam, and from where I live, it's 1 hour cycling to the beach, to Hoek van Holland, which is also the mouth of the Rhine River. And on old maps of this area, I found that there was actually a huge nature reserve and bird breeding area that existed until the 60s, when the Europort harbour was expanding. So this natural area was completely erased off the map, and it was one of the most severe environmental catastrophes in the Netherlands, but it has largely been forgotten. So I was interested in finding ways to listen back to this landscape, and I was trying to imagine the noisy landscape of the transformation of the area and its erasure. which was inspired by a book by feminist theorist Tina Kempt, which is called Listening to Images. So she invites us to listen for low frequencies in archives. And I found this like online archive of the old like machinery that was excavating this area, this old construction company that provided the machines. And I tried to imagine the sounds of the excavation, of the construction of dams, the paving of roads, the low hum of the engines, the hard to or difficult to hear voices of the construction workers. So yeah, also I think here I would like to bring this question: how can we listen to a landscape that no longer exists or that has been transformed completely? And how can we reconstruct sounds from before? And what do these sonic environments tell us about how the landscape has been changed? But also, what does it tell us about capitalist expansion and colonial histories and harmed ecosystems? And also, what will we hear here in the future? And during the journey that we made, I was often recording sounds from encounters that we had with people that we met along the way, or non-human inhabitants, or our conversations, or the environment. And I also started to make audio collages, which I find interesting because here you can listen to human or like man-made sounds and non-human sound, or urban and rural areas, or land and water sounds at the same time. So listening to different temporalities and localities simultaneously that are overlapping or blurring or can suddenly coexist. And I'm also curious how these soundscapes can maybe become also counter cartographies or testimonies or forms of memory activism. So it's interesting to imagine how this place sounded before, like what sonic landscape we could inhabit here before. Also with each time that the shipyard changed from timber construction to iron processing, so the materials also reveal the type of industry that were located here. We can imagine the sound of carpenters first, and then the workshop with ovens and foundries later, but also the storage facilities. Later on, the sounds of people training for the marine. There used to be a helicopter landing zone, which apparently made a lot of noise, according to the neighborhood. But also the sounds of the demolition when the Tunnel was built right next to us. But also there was a lot of silence, for instance, in the bunkers that were constructed during the Cold War, or for when, in case there would be a nuclear attack. And then there's all the secret activities that we have no clue what they sounded like, because this area was hermetically sealed off. It was also blurred on maps. So it was a very secretive area. Politicians or witnesses were hiding out here, and so we can only guess what sounds or what words could be listened to here. And then, of course, the sounds of this area have really changed since 2015, when suddenly the gates were opened, and now we can see some bridges that were erected that we see people walking on now. There's a lot of education and research institutes now located here, a hotel, and this public park, and a public swimming pool. So a lot has changed. So this area and how it has been shaped over time is part, I think, of stories of modernity and capitalism and economic expansion. And it's then interesting to think of how water, and so first the sea and later all the controlled water bodies, are also carriers for this story, or these different stories. So water was a battleground for the ships that were constructed here, but also the carry of materials and goods and people that were subjected to these capitalist flows or currents. But also today it's more like, I think, branded as a space for so-called innovation and recreation, which I think are against notions that are bound up with modernity and capitalism. Maybe they sound or look differently. But then, it's interesting to think of how these sounds may resonate with sounds from before, but are still part of the same stories. And as a listener, we also always carry our own sonic memories and listening positions, which are also connected to different times or different localities. So through listening, we can also get a deeper understanding of how different bodies of water are connected. Yeah, and also connected through these ongoing stories of capitalism, etc. And also leading to the current climate crisis and then I guess a very uncertain future, which we have no idea what it will sound like. So I'm very curious who will be listening here in 200 years from now and what they will be listening to.